Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. We'll just give a few more minutes for people to join us. We'll wait 2 minutes and then we'll start. Okay, I think we'll get started now. Don't want to keep everybody waiting who's joined on time. So good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Why Standards SAP Clearing Doesn't Cut It. My name is Sue, and I'm an account manager at Best. It's great to have you with us today. I'm joined by my colleague, Chris Brooks, who's our GL product manager and who will be presenting today's webinar. Through his experience as an SAP finance consultant, Chris encountered the frustrations with standard SAP limitations when clearing open items. And it's these limitations and frustrations which ultimately led to the birth of the Best Open Item Clearing module. During this webinar, we'll explore the challenges with standard SAP clearing and introduce you to the powerful solution we've developed at Best to address them. We'll dedicate some time at the end to address any questions. Please post them in the chat in the interim. And yeah, that's all. Let's dive in. Chris, over to you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Sue. Yeah, so I think we have a fairly straightforward agenda for this morning. So like Sue mentioned, I'm just going to start with actually outlining the standard SAP functional constraints. And I'll touch on the two methods of clearing, the automated clearing that SAP offers, as well as the manual clearing, and what I find so frustrating and limiting within these transactions. And then I'll move to online demo of our Best GL clearing module so that we can actually see how we can actually tackle these shortcomings from a standard SAP perspective. And then we'll address any questions that you have perhaps posted in the chat. So please feel free to post those as I go through the presentation and the demo, and we'll address those towards the end. Okay, so just to give you, I guess, some context as to Best and our Best modules that we have, what we do is we provide in SAP solutions. So our modules sit inside of SAP, and from a user perspective, they really just feel like an extension of standard SAP functionality. So very easy to start using from the outset. And obviously it means that you're using these modules within SAP and not another system. And everything that we're going to be looking at within our modules is real-time inside of SAP. So very convenient from that perspective. And you can see just our 4 key modules that I've got listed on the slide. The balance sheet reconciliations module, which is looking at automating and managing your month-end reconciliations all within SAP. That's automated approvals, online approvals, and managed with very comprehensive management reporting so that you can manage that whole month-end process all directly in SAP itself. I also, I neglected to say that our modules are all SAP certified. We've certified up to S/4HANA 2023. Just moving on down the list in terms of the modules, we also have our open item clearing, which we'll obviously be looking at today. But we also have our two sub-ledger modules, the customer clearing, which is looking at primarily the allocation of customer payments, so we can clear it from your bank account, post the detail of a remittance that your customer sent you to the customer account, and automate the clearing directly within SAP. And all of that can happen pretty much just from an emailing the remittance to everything happening automatically within SAP. So it can be a huge time saver. We're now allocating a lump sum payment to your customer account. Last on the list, the vendor statement, recon, and reader module. Similarly, with customers now looking at your vendor side of things, is that we can actually take your vendor, your supplier statements, and automatically reconcile that to your vendor account inside of SAP. So we take in the statement, we can match all the line items and produce an automated recon outlining all the items that match, that perhaps are in different statuses, maybe still in your GRR account, so that you can integrate that with your payment to your supplier and send them the reconciliation as to what needs correction and what has been agreed. Just on all of these, we obviously will be looking at having webinars in the new year on these modules. So please keep an eye out for those invitations and feel free to register. Otherwise, obviously, just contact us for more information or a demo. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at the open item clearing. So let's delve into it. So you might be thinking, well, I know that SAP has automated clearing. I have that running every day. Why is this an issue? So just in terms of one of the key restrictions for this is that the clearing rules are configured at a chart of accounts level. So in most SAP instances, a lot of companies use the same chart of accounts. So what that means is if you want to have a specific rule set for clearing, that means that all of those companies using that chart have to use that rule set. So if in this instance you have these three companies that want to use assignment for clearing, but another company wants to use the line item text, for instance, it means that you have to make a decision, and typically it's a majority rules type of decision. And this poor company that clearing rule doesn't apply to is now forced to use the manual clearing option, which we'll be discussing shortly. Secondly, and perhaps the most restrictive in this for this clearing, is that it won't allow you to automatically match items and clear them across different account types and by extension across different company codes. So just looking at this graphic on the presentation, if you have debits in one account and credits in another, like a customer or bank account, or even if it's just open item balance sheet accounts that might be in two different accounts or represented on the right in two different companies, it's not going to automatically match it. Even if you have perfect references all sitting in the exact same fields, it's not going to be able to match those, and that can be quite frustrating. So this can be an issue, and now you have to look at either using manual clearing or perhaps some more adventurous ways of clearing these items within SAP.
Chris, in your past life as an SAP finance consultant, how did you face these issues? How did you try and clear open items?
Well, so I would actually try I would try and maximize the automated clearing like this. So I would actually want to run the automated clearing just to avoid manual clearing at all costs. So what I would actually do in a lot of these instances would be to actually post the contra entry. So I would extract everything out of these accounts into Excel, have an upload that I would then post the contra entry to this customer account and to this bank account. The net effect of my upload is effectively zero. But what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to meet the criteria of the automated clearing. So I would then have the contra entry in the customer account with the perfect reference, so that when I run the automated clearing, it can clear it. Now, whilst that enables the clearing and gets it out, I'm just introducing risk, because I'm posting now a whole lot of additional information into SAP purely to get it out from a clearing perspective. So if for whatever reason I post to the wrong account, now those items can't clear, or if I get the reference wrong, and this clearing doesn't happen, now what I've done is I've just duplicated or doubled the volume of transactions just to enable clearing. So I found it very stressful and risky, but it was kind of necessary in order to clear these items. So that was, might be something that someone is doing currently to be able to enable a clearing in this fashion, or you end up with just trying to use manual clearing.
Sounds like a very tedious process, I have to say. And
It
error
is,
prone.
and error prone. Often I would end up in that scenario where you spend hours posting and then realize something is wrong, and now you have to spend time to reverse everything you've done and realize you've just spent 3 or 4 hours just to get to the exact same point you started at at the beginning of the exercise. So it can be quite demoralizing in that respect. Just continuing with some of the restrictions on automated clearing. So it's very specific in terms of once it has that rule set, and if everything still is in the same account, that it has to have a perfect match on the reference. So just looking at this example, if one reference has an extra leading 0, it's treated as completely unique. And this is actually a screenshot directly from the automated clearing program, where it's treated these two as independent open items on the same account. So those won't be able to be cleared. And this is where maybe now someone has to go and change the reference or do a mass update on the reference in order to clear this. And again, now it's another mass change that's being run to perhaps strip out these leading 0s to enable matching. Okay, and then so that ends the automated clearing. And now, if you can't manage and decide perhaps not to post the contra entries or to do mass journal updates, your next option is manual clearing. And you have to, I have the wry smile when I just look at the screen because I've spent far too many hours fighting SAP to try and clear items using these F-03s and F-32 transactions. And I've grabbed the screen because this is really highlights, if you wanted to select 50 GL accounts to clear, this is what you're faced with. And what I always found interesting about this manual clearing is that all those constraints that I've noted from the automated clearing, cross-company code, cross-account, things like that, don't actually, they're not applicable to manual clearing. So I can select 3 accounts and clear items across different accounts and different company codes. And that's how I can do that with the selection. But you can see, I can only ever select 8 at a time, and I have to page down and paste in another 8. So if I wanted to select 50 or 100 accounts, it can be very time consuming to do this. And even once I've done that, you end up with this list of open items. And again, if you're dealing with volumes of transactions, thousands, hundreds of thousands of items, you're literally looking at it in this list that's kind of compressed to the left of your screen, and you're limited in what you are able to see. And actually, these layouts are configured. So if I wanted to now bring in text, if it wasn't actually a pre-existing layout, I'd have to go to my SAP team and say, please, can you configure a line layout for me that has text? And then I would have to probably drop one of these other fields. So now do I drop assignment? Do I drop document number? So quite frustrating from that perspective, and you can spend hours kind of clicking away, making everything go blue and trying to get that balance to 0.
So Chris, the same question again, actually. What was your approach for clearing items within these constraints, apart from asking your SAP team?
So I tried using as many tricks as I could. One was to use work lists. So I would create work lists for company codes. I'd create work lists for account selections, with the idea that I could then select the work list here, and it would automatically pull through multiple companies or multiple customers, and in that way try and reduce the kind of pain from the selection. Another thing might be that in the actual selection from here, I might, to get to the specific line items to save me clicking away at all these lines, is that I might update a reference. I might actually say, right, well, I know these 4,500 items come to 0, so I do a mass change on the line item and I give a unique reference in the text, for instance, to say Chris clearing batch 1, something like that. And then I would know that that was unique in the system. I would select the accounts and then be able to select that specific reference so that it would pull back all 4,500 entries. And then when I come to this screen, hopefully everything would be 0 and I could just click post. But again, if anything goes wrong or if there's an additional line item that comes through, I've got to find it. So again, always just time consuming and risky at the end of the day.
If anything happened to you, nobody else would know how you'd managed to do the whole process.
Yeah, exactly. And now you're worried you've changed something, so it can make the audit trail a little bit more confusing. But fortunately, I think that's kind of hopefully paves the way as to why they felt the need for something better, because on the one hand, with manual clearing, you have the flexibility to be able to clear across account, clear across company code, but you just don't have the mechanisms and automation to assist you with it. And when on the automated side, you have all these restrictions. So somewhere between, there seem to be like, why isn't there a solution that brings the best of both worlds together? And that's really, like you mentioned, born from that frustration. Our clearing module was born. So I'm going to jump into the functional demo now. This is just a screenshot that I've got. Just it illustrates our tiles that we have in Fiori. So if you are using Fiori as your primary access to SAP, the best transactions are created in Fiori so that you can actually access it directly that way. Okay, so let me just get my screens together. So effectively, what I'm going to do is, where I'm going to start is I'm going into our best GL main menu. So you can see it's a unique transaction code that I have. That is effectively what we give you. It's in our own namespace, and we can manage it through standard SAP authorizations. And so I can now access all of our best transactions from here. And again, all of these are driven by individual transaction codes, so we can manage the access to the functionality very easily. I'm going to run our automated clearing transaction, and I'm just going to select a variant to show you some of the functionality. What I've done here is I'm selecting customers and GL accounts multiple, so I've got a range of them across multiple company codes. And you can see, if you're familiar with running a normal SAP balance report or an SAP line item report, very much the look and feel of SAP. I've got the normal kind of selections where I can paste from my clipboard, exclusions, etc. So very easy for me to run for multiple company codes, multiple accounts, ranges, paste from my clipboard, etc. I'm not kind of limited to those 8 at a time. And what I'll do when I run this, it's going to run and select all the open items on these accounts, and I'll be able to match these according to criteria that I give it, but purely based on and it'll match across accounts and across company codes. So if I were to run, just by comparison, this is the SAP automated clearing, the same thing with the same 4 companies, with the same customer accounts and same GL accounts, just to really drive home that point, is that as soon as I run that, it automatically separates each company code and customer as its own, like little subset that it's looking to clear in. It's never actually looking at whether there's debits and credits across the different accounts or different company codes. So, when I run it from my perspective, you can see it's pulled everything. In this case, I've got 316 open items, and it's pulled everything that's available for matching. I've got a fairly basic rule here where I'm matching on assignment. So you can see what it does. It groups based on assignment, and based on the total, it'll see if it's within my tolerance, which is currently 0, but obviously I can toggle that. So as long as the tolerance is 0, it'll say it's eligible for clearing. Now that's represented by a green line here, which means that these 2 items can be cleared, and these actually tally into my 40 items that are within my tolerance. I still have 276 that don't match, and that I can see by these kind of lines illustrated in pink. Now, it's important for me to tell you that what I'm doing here, just to illustrate the functionalities, I'm running this online. I could run this in the background, and all the identified matches would be automatically created in a clearing job, which I could then process every hour, every evening, however often I want. So it's just bear in mind that everything that I'm doing now, we would typically run in an automated fashion, so that it could run and match items in this, according to this criteria, however often I want. And the beauty of that is it means that I can have very unique criteria running for my selection as often as I want. So now I can have that one poor company running as clearing for that account based on text, whereas the other companies can still be using their criteria. Okay, so just briefly to give you some indication as to what I'm looking at here, these are just my common references that I have. We pull and can pull every single field on the accounting document from the header or from the line item. So the fact that this is what I'm looking at doesn't mean that this is what I'm limited to at all. And just to illustrate that point, this is what I have visible, but if I actually have a look at everything, I think there's 458 fields that I could choose. So I can bring in the cross-company code number, I can bring in anything on the header, the specific XREF values, so anything else that might be stored or posted on the accounting document, I can bring into my display. And the nice thing about that is it means then it's part and parcel, or it's available to use as clearing criteria. Because as soon as it's available, I might say, right, well, if I were to actually just sort on document type, that's applying it as my criteria. And I'm saying, right, well, nothing matches based on document type, but I can have combinations to say, right, well, what happens if it was assignment and posting date and document type? It's as flexible as that to be able to chop and change my clearing criteria so that I can actually apply that. I can save that as a clearing criteria, which I can then automate and say, right, that's the criteria I want to use, and I'm going to run that every hour. So hopefully that point is made in terms of how flexible it is to be able to chop and change, to say, right, clear by text and clear by date. Okay, so just to go back, I'm just going to go back to assignment, and there's one or two things I'm just going to show you before we start actually moving on. You can see that I've got a customer entry, so my customers are these alphanumerics with a GL account in the same company that it's matched based on this value. I can drill down into the document. The beauty again of being inside of SAP is I have full drill down functionality. But what's important is to see that this customer entry actually has these 4 leading zeros on the assignment field. So, it would typically not have matched if, based on the GL account, which doesn't have those 4 leading zeros. But what I've done is I've applied a modification to my assignment so that it can actually strip out special characters and leading zeros to allow for this programmatic match. It hasn't changed the assignment value at all. It's just a programmatic match. And it's quite fun to have a look at because we have a whole lot of different modifications that we can do. You can see for this one, I have removed leading spaces, 0 special characters, and condense no gaps. But it could be a little bit more fancy, like remove alphas or numeric characters, strip and mine out specific bits of text out of a string of text. But here you can kind of see how this modification is going to manifest and how it can cleanse these numbers into something like this. And what you can do is actually run a test. And this is quite nice to do if you have a specific reference from a bank that you're trying to get into a specific fashion. You can actually just test it with this little test tool, and it can actually then cleanse something like this into a nice little number like that. And then this is what we'll use for matching. But the beauty is that will always remain as the original reference on that field. So you have that full original audit trail that you can trace back to a bank statement or to an IDOC or to wherever this document originated. And just to, I could say remove alphas, and it can actually strip out the specific letters. So some quite fun stuff that we can do in those modifications. So that's being applied to these references in all of these examples. Okay, so just moving on, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to accept all of this. So I'll just show you the flexibility of how I can apply different methodologies to this. So I might say these 40 from an assignment point of view, I'm happy with. So I want to bank those. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically accept them for now. You can see they've moved down into an accepted status, and all my unmatched items are now just the remaining 276. So any new criteria that I apply, it's not going to be applied to those 40 that I've really just moved to a different staging area. And here, and I'll move through this quite quickly, I might say, right, well, let's have a look at header text, because that's a common reference. Does anything agree here? And here you can see, again, I've got a customer and a GL account, but now it's actually in 2 different company codes. So again, no restriction on company code or account type. And I've got another 60 that I can accept, which I will do. I've now got 100 that I've banked. I'm now down to 216 open items. And lastly, I'm just going to go and have a look at my reference. And again, cross-company, cross-account type matches, where it's actually being able to have a look at this. Now I can apply tolerances for this. I can use residual item functionality for this, but I'm just going to keep it quite simple in terms of just showing you the baseline functionality and flexibility. Okay, so yeah.
And Chris, sorry, so everything you're doing on the screen here, can you automate this and let it run periodically in the background?
100%. So that is an important point of running this online to illustrate the functionality. But ultimately, once this exercise is done and the matching rules are identified, we save those as like clearing criteria and automate it. So we'll actually say, right, this company wants to run these 5 accounts to clear on X, Y, and Z, and we're going to run that every hour or every evening. So it's really built to be run in an automated fashion so that users are primarily, if they ever run it online like this, would be managing exceptions. Okay, so I'm down to 160 that I've accepted. It's just over 51% of the total items I've got. And you might be thinking here, well, I've been using sort kind of criteria to actually say, right, well, I've matched based on assignment or header or reference. So what I want to show you is that if we get to the point where maybe references have actually gone across different fields, we have this capability to switch our matching method to identify that. And to do that, what I can do is I can just come back in here and I can say, right, well, I know that my text field is actually a common text and reference that's used that sometimes is proliferated into different fields. So I'll actually want to search for that text field, and let's search in the assignment field, and I want to search for it also in my header reference and my header text. So when I apply that, you'll see it'll actually apply that as a sort. I'm still in a sort match, but I have this new kind of option of a column match. Now, when I click this, it actually switches the logic to not just look within those specific fields, but across them. So you can see my icons at the top have changed, where my text is actually my source reference, that it's looking in these other destination fields. And here you can see it's matched this text against this assignment field. And even though they're different fields. So this is kind of my I don't know, the holy grail example of all of those restrictions I was going through, because I've actually matched a modified reference. I've cleaned up the zeros. I'm matching it across 2 different fields, and I'm matching it across a customer, a GL, in 2 different companies. And that's the beauty and the flexibility of this. And this could be running automatically every day to take these items and clear them. Now, what's great about this is that once this runs, we can just manage the exceptions. But just to kind of go down just a bit further, you can actually see it's managed to match the text to a header text item. So this is very useful, because now I don't have to necessarily go back and be desperate to try and change this interface to get that reference into the text field. because as long as I can match it together, I can actually post it. And this will post, and we post with normal SAP clearing transactions. So we are always governed by the standard SAP configurations and settings in your system. So as much as I would like to clear these cross-company code, if that's not configured in your system, it won't be able to post that. So, but the beauty of that is that obviously the small differences will be automatically determined through config, Forex accounts, things like that, all automatically determined. Document splitting, everything like that is all standard SAP. Sorry, just to show you then, I could go and obviously add that to my review. And when I come back, I've got 54 items that are now unmatched and 262 that I can clear. So I was managed to chew through 83% of those open items using different methods. Okay, and I'm just going to beetle along, just looking at time. I'll spend perhaps a few more minutes just to show you some slight variations of this functionality. And one of those is just looking at how we can use like totals and manual grouping in certain instances. So this is an example where it actually represents a customer example that we have that would clear daily store point of sale cash ups, where it might be at each day for each profit center, which represents the store, the total should be 0 once they have done the remaining banking for the day to offset against all the sales and returns. But it might not always be the case. There might be differences, and it can be quite tricky to match. So what I can do, there might be hundreds of transactions each day, is actually just look at it at a total. So now I can see by profit center and by date, which days agree and which don't. And the beauty of this is that what I can do is I might be able to say, right, well, let's just accept the days that do match. So let's just go and add those to my review, so that now when I look at it, I'm just looking at my problem days, but I am able to group and manually kind of group transactions as well as these totals. So in this case, if I look at this, I can actually see for that store represented by this profit center that there was kind of an over and an under on 2 consecutive days. So I might be able to say, look, please just put those 2 together, and it'll group all those underlying transactions so that I can put the pieces of the puzzle together. And it can be quite easy in this respect to actually see common transactions that I can group. And it will actually kind of do the mathematics for me, so that I can actually identify if there's specific differences that might need to be done. So if I were to group that, I would see that there's 177 Rand difference. You can see it still remains pink because it doesn't agree to 0, but I can actually see that there's now this group. If I were to add that to group 3, I could see that the new total would actually go to 0. So it'll actually work out that maths for me, and then I could actually group this all down, and ultimately I would get down to this one group and the 2 cent difference. But very nice functionality to be able to group totals in that respect. And perhaps I'll spend 2 seconds on this example, is that actually perhaps an example that might relate to yourselves might be fiscal year and period. So this might be a case where there's a lot of transactions, and at month end there's a balancing journal to offset it to 0. And in this case, you could actually identify it. And if there are months that maybe don't offset, and one of the transactions went into the following months, you end up with this kind of similar over and under between the 2 months, where I can actually just go and group those together and then clear based on fiscal year and period on this account. Okay, so just 2 other scenarios, and I think I neglected to show you my slide of these scenarios. It was the next slide. Here I've covered this basic functionality demo, and we've had a look at these totals. I just want to touch on how we can look at inter and intra-company clearing, as well as a quick intercompany reconciliation scenario, and then we'll move into questions. So I'll be done in literally a few minutes. And it's just what we found was that I can actually run this clearing for intra-company, where a case in point of a customer of ours looking at supplying stores around the country through a centralized warehouse, has one vendor that's supplying all of the different stores, which represent customers in their SAP environment. So they then have this whole intercompany billing that they process, and it can be all with across company code or within the company code, but they want to actually run clearing between these customers and vendors using the invoice reference as a matching reference. And what this does is it just, without running this clearing, these transactions just build up and build up, and it's very hard to know what are open on these accounts and what represents like actual problem items that are either on the road or have never been delivered. So it's very easy to be able to set up a rule like this that can match on the header reference, which would be the invoice number, and you can see it can be between the customer and vendor document type. So here's my account types, and it could be across different company codes or within the same company code. If it's cross company code, the nice thing about this is that will then actually clear these and post it to the true intercompany accounts managed between the company codes. So it gets it out of these kind of sub ledgers and into your true intercompany. We can also look at aggregating these postings per day so that it's not going to post too many line items from a clearing perspective to those intercompanies, but very easy to do this so that ultimately, when you look at this, you'd want to see, mainly your customer items as open items, and any vendor open items might be an issue because that should be the second leg of this transaction. But this is a nice practical way of perhaps looking at managing intra-company or intercompany accounts at this level, particularly customers and vendors. Okay, so I'm nearly there, and then we can move to questions. Last example that I'm going to have a look at is actually just looking at where we can potentially use this as a reconciliation tool. And the example that I'm going to show you is I just want to jump to our, this is a report that I'm running. It's our recon report from our balance sheet reconciliations module. And what this is doing is it's running a whole lot of intercompany relationships that I've set up as part of our master data. So we can set up complex relationships for specific accounts within SAP. So we can create, in this case, 10 combinations that I'm looking at. And within these combinations, I'm actually looking at specific trading partner offsets. But it could be customer to vendor, it could be segment to profit center. It's entirely up to you how you would want to set up these combinations. But the idea is that you want to run it so that you can identify which combination doesn't offset at month end. And of these 10, I can see that 8 of them offset. So they're balancing from a transactional perspective, but there are 2 relationships, 3 and 9, which have differences. And this could be quite tricky. So I'm looking at almost 18,500 transactions, how to actually to go and investigate this. But from a recon perspective, you can see I can explode this out, and I'll actually see the transactions for the specific company codes, GL accounts, and ultimately down to the trading partner. But you can see there's 899 transactions. Its contra entry's got 900, so maybe there's already an indication that something might have gone wrong. But you can see, to try and work with this, there's a lot of detail that might be tricky to reconcile. But you can see I've got all the information here, and again, drill down functionality to drill down into the line items. But because I know that this is actually posted through SAP and it's managed through our cross-company code functionality, I know that the cross-company code number is going to be a good reference to be able to tie up the 2 halves of these transactions. Again, it could also be maybe a common reference or a common field, but I would have that capability to manage it from my clearing here. So now if I actually go and select for that GL account for those specific trading partners, I can actually have a look at pulling all of these items and maybe using the functionality of the clearing to help me investigate what these differences are. So here I can see that same value of transactions, just under 18.5. There's my 324. I don't know, you won't perhaps remember it, but there's my 324 that was represented across these two relationships. And if I were to perhaps say, look, well, show me if I group it by cross-company code number, what actually happens. And I can see that in terms of matching these, 5 transactions pop out. And once I hide my matched transactions, I can actually see this 324,000 represented by these 5 specific transactions. And now they can help me, perhaps go and pull these into cross-company code numbers, go and have a look and investigate why these are giving rise, where's their contra entry? Do I need to reverse this, or did someone only reverse half the leg, etc. So again, just another use of this matching capability to use it as a reconciliation tool and not necessarily just purely for posting clearing. And that is it from me from a demo perspective. So I'll just stop sharing and then we can take some questions.
Thanks, Chris. That's great. We do have a question here. If building this automation in ECC version and later transitioning to S/4HANA, do we need to do the work from scratch? How much effort would be required to implement a similar solution in S4?
No change. So everything that you have would be available. So there would be no extra effort to recreate.
Okay, sorry, I'm just having a look here. Are there any other questions? I don't know if there's a follow-up question from that one. Here's another one. What if you do clear a lot of transactions and then suddenly you realize that you've made a mistake or you change your mind? Is there anything you can do?
Yes, there is. We do have a mass reset and reverse functionality primarily for that reason. So a good example of that is maybe you run clearing on the 1st of the month and you forget to backdate the clearing date to the 31st of the previous month. And now everything's been cleared in the wrong period. What we do is we have a mass reset and reverse so that we can actually pop in all of those clearing documents and easily be able to undo that. Yes, so I know when we talk about that, our accounts payable colleagues always get excited because they think, oh, okay, if there's, sometimes failed payments that go through to the bank and you have to reset and reverse all of those payment entries, typically that's done one at a time. Yeah, so we can mass reset and reverse that. Again, a separate transaction which we put in a expert role, so it's very tightly managed from that perspective, because really it's very similar to a mass reversal transaction. So we can limit who has access to that, even if it needs to be managed through a firefighter process.
Okay, and then just one more here. Does BEST provide any additional reporting on open item clearing?
Yes, it does. So I guess if I can just share, I don't know am I sharing?
Yes.
Can you see the SAP screen? I just want to check if, or are you seeing yourself?
No, we can see the SAP screen.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, great. So we actually have our clearing report. So effectively what this is that we can, based on a clearing date selection, so you might look at clearing for the month, be able to run this. And what we do is we identify and categorize how the clearing was done. So, just sometimes it can be very difficult to report on clearing through standard SAP. The nice thing about this is that this will identify all the items that were cleared, and then it'll actually be able to report it in a way like this. So just how I'm looking at it is subtotal by company code, account type, and GL account. So already I can actually see the number of cleared items that were posted in this manner. But what we do is we then actually categorize it. So if it was cleared through standard SAP automated clearing, it would be reflected in this column. This is our best clearing, and here you can see I've got automated versus semi-automated. Why we categorize it like that is that fully automated would be run completely in the background. So just running every day, no user intervention whatsoever, versus a semi-automated fashion, which is what I was kind of showing today in the demo, where I'd run it online and I might be, selecting my clearing and accepting for clearing. Obviously, the automated clearing is better because it doesn't have that kind of requirement of the user running online. And then this is kind of the worst of the lot, the SAP manual clearing. So this is those screens clicking away. So anything that we identify here, we would actually go, right, well, let's really start moving those into these automated clearing areas. And I guess just to explode this out, I can get down to the actual document, clearing document. I can see who cleared it. I can see how long it took to clear. So you could start running maybe reports on how much clearing is being done per user per month and things like that. So yes, we do have this kind of nice reporting to be able to do it. And often we use it as an optimization tool to actually say, right, well, why is there so much clearing being done on this account manually? Who's doing that? Can we not help and get this to run daily in an automated fashion?
Sounds very useful. Another one here, what are the timelines to implement it, and how much does the number of company codes impact the timelines?
So typically we have a 2 to 3 month implementation and with an extra month of go live support. But our kind of pricing is based on volume. So it's really about how many open items you wanting to clear through the tool. So quite straightforward from us, even if it is lots of company codes, we have some baseline configuration that we set up for the company codes, but that's about it. So company codes are not a problem from an implementation perspective. Users would be more of an impact from an effort perspective, but purely just from a training perspective. But we have online training tools that we use so that we can actually train large groups of users and then conclude that with training review sessions towards the end. So we're very much geared for large user groups, and the clearing itself is optimized for large volumes of transactions.
Chris, I think we've got time for 2 more. Can you please share more info on which companies are using this open item clearing module and how are they benefiting from it?
Yes, and I guess just in terms of wrapping up from the presentation, hopefully this is quite self-explanatory in terms of how we can manage all of these efficiencies from an automated clearing and how you would have to use manual clearing. But perhaps the slide then just helps reiterate. So we've got more customers using clearing than this, but these are our customers that have we kind of rolled off to hundreds of thousands within just typically within the 1 month of support. Obviously some high volume customers here. So the likes of Pet4 Lifestyle, previously JD, Italtile, Dis-Chem, Shoprite, and Netcare. We also have AfriSam, HSE, and Ireland, plus a few others that are using clearing. So you can also be happy to put you in touch with anyone if you would like to actually speak to them to understand. But effectively what it means is that they run these automated clearing jobs every day, just to help them manage both historic backlogs as well as current transactions, especially in some of these the retail customers who typically have interfaces of transactions coming in, thousands of transactions every day. So if you actually are not able to keep up with that daily load, you're falling backwards every single day, and your historic open items just grow and grow. So that's how we've been able to assist them to be able to clear a lot of banking transactions, to be able to clear a lot of point of sale transactions. Dis-Chem use it to clear a lot of intercompany transactions. So quite a nice blend of a lot of that functionality we looked at today being used by our customers.
And Chris, the last question here, and it was actually a follow-up on the previous one of not this previous one, but the one before, in terms of the implementation, is how much time and effort and cost is increased when you're talking about different SAP instances. So does that impact?
Yeah, it does. It does. So typically, our implementation cost is per SAP instance, just because we install our product within a specific instance, and it would be tested and moved through each of those those systems and effectively operate independently within each of the SAP instances. But depending on how we can consolidate actions, so maybe there might still be a kind of a central design approach for all of the instances. We could look at trying to manage that cost as best as possible, where we could kind of try and group efforts together to reduce it being split into each of the instances, if that makes sense.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks, Chris. I think we'll end off now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on our webinar, Why Standard SAP Clearing Doesn't Cut It. We've enjoyed sharing our insights and the challenges that standard SAP clearing presents, and how our best in SAP module can make a difference. Thanks especially to Chris for the presentation. And if you have any further questions or would like to explore our solution in more detail, please reach out and we can set up a demo with you and your team. And thanks again for your time, and we look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.